Hi everyone, welcome to With JJ. I'm your host JJ, and this is going to be a series where we just interview people that are a part of our community and get to know each other a little bit better. Today we have Rod with us.
Hi everyone.
And Rod is actually part of the Imperial Court, and that's how I met him. And he is actually a candidate for the next Emperor reign. Yes. Confetti. So, hi Rod, welcome.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful.
Per usual. So, go ahead and tell a little bit about your, just a little background about yourself. How did you get involved with the Imperial Court?
Cool. So actually, it's been 2 years I've been part of the Imperial Court system. Before I joined, let me clear my throat. Before I joined the Imperial Court, I was really volunteering for a lot of. Oh, he's so cute.
We'll just keep it in.
This is Bandit. And so before I joined the Imperial Court, I was actually volunteering a lot with other nonprofits, such as Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. And a friend of mine named Shay, which is the reigning empress right now of the Long Beach Imperial Court, reached out to me and asked if I would like to run for a title, which is the House of Hearts Royalty. And I was so hesitant, I was so nervous. And at the same time, I was like, you know what? I've been doing so much for other organizations and not even my own community. And I was like, you know what? This is my chance. And so I ran for the position and I won. And till this day, I still carry that wonderful experience, and now I'm a candidate for Emperor of the IICLB.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited that you got involved because I would not have met you. And you're a really cool person, and I like you.
Thank you.
So, what does it mean to you to be able to be taking this step now? You were part of the Imperial Court. You helped them during a previous reign, right? And now with Shay and Joey's reign, you were helping as well. You also had a specific title during that reign, but now you're taking that step, a big step, I would say, to become that leader. What does that mean to you?
It means so much more than just saying a leader. I think it's being a voice for the voiceless. And for those that want to be a part of a community that want to follow someone that can speak for them.
Mm.
I mean, we could do it with or without a title, but for me, it just happens that an emperor position and being able to fundraise and give back to those in need and to continuously work with other nonprofits and the community, it's just taking it to that next level where this organization that I feel very passionate about to the next level. You know, we always change generations, and in generations there's always that type of change that we don't get to be a part of, and this is, for me, I think, a perfect time for this change to be a part of with this organization.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned change, and I know that's a really big topic with the Imperial Court currently.
Yeah.
When I was in Vegas, the word was getting thrown around where people were a little bit nervous about change, right? Maybe the older generation who helped create specific guidelines. They're a little nervous, and even the younger generation that is this is the way it should be, right? How do you feel about integrating newer things or newer traditions that our community does now to the older traditions?
I think the one thing that we do forget is the traditions we do now are part of the older traditions. They're just elevated. I think something that we do forget is the older folks or our older generations, in a sense, that have paved the way, have given us that foundation to make this new tradition, which is still similar to what we've already been doing. And when I think of change, I don't think of changing it completely, but taking it to the next level of what the foundation already was, because we don't want to throw away what the past has done for us. We want to carry that legacy and continue that and make it our own in this generation to this day.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with, we definitely should, whatever traditions we had, it helped us get to where we are today.
Correct.
We need to honor those.
100%.
And I love that you mentioned that we're technically doing the same traditions that they did previously. It's just elevated, right?
Exactly.
And so, what do you think will be like a big challenge when it comes to just helping people that help pave the way, like see, the what they would say like the new traditions?
I think the biggest thing is communications between each generation. We all speak to each other differently. We all kind of bring the topics of what we've done and how we do things differently, and I think it's just finding the way to compromise the way we communicate about those things and making sure that we hear and listen to one another, because at the end of the day it's like, I can tell you this, but do you understand what I'm telling you?
Right.
Like I can tell you this is what our traditions are, but do you understand the traditions itself?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just finding that communicational balance of like knowing and how to understand their aspect of what their version was to what we want to carry that legacy into this new generation today, but still have that same communication balance of like, oh yeah, that's, I don't understand, like, can you explain more, what's the detail? And I think that's the part that's going to be a little challenging. And a lot of people back in their times, like, communication wasn't always their strong point, but now in this age we want to know more. We always want to ask questions, we want to understand what it's about, so we can make sure we're carrying that same aspect of what they had to offer us.
Yeah, I also think that like people that grew up, a decade or two decades before us, they grew up during a time where it was just like you don't talk about things.
Correct.
Like people tell you like what you're doing and
you do it.
And then so like they wanted to break that barrier, and so then they created like a voice, right? And then there was the revolutions for like the gay community or the LGBTIA plus community, right? All the letters. Speaking of letters, I identify as someone who is non-binary. I know that there is Emperor and Empress, and I recently found out, well, not recently, but maybe almost a year ago or like half a year ago, I found out that there is Emperex title. I thought there was just an MX title, which, by the way, if you didn't know, I am current reigning MX Pride 2023. And so MX is for, or the X family line is for individuals who don't identify as either gender. You can be non-binary, you can be two-spirit, or under the umbrella. And this gives you the opportunity to feel comfortable enough to present how you feel comfortable presenting. So currently the the X family line is just me and one other person. Do you by chance have any plans on expanding the X family line?
Oh, 100%. I think it makes me so happy that the X line has actually been more new to us in an organization. It was back in Reign 48, which was under Mahalia, and she had added to the bylaws or P's and P's that we would finally have an Emprex line. So for me to know that we have taken that generational change to include everyone and not just people that identify as him and her, to have a non-binary title opens the doors for us to even expand, to reach out. And I would love to expand that. I believe in the trans community. That is one of the communities that I feel very heartfelt for, because I do have a lot of trans friends that suffer because of the attacks that they have and not feeling so accepted because they don't know where they fit in. And it's just such a stigma that we need to keep continuously working at and breaking it, because at the end of the day, the only way we can do it is having that voice, or having people with that voice, or at the same time educating people how we can go about this, how we can treat each other better, how we can maneuver through the challenges, but not just alone, but doing it as a group of us,
Right.
Because it doesn't take one person, it takes a village.
It really does.
Yeah.
I love that, thank you. So that actually brings me to my next question. We currently have a lot of queens, or people that identify as queens, in our court. We have a lot of individuals that identify as male as well. My thought is, do you plan on inviting the kings in as well?
100%. I think what inspired me even more so was your show, Transcendent. And it was like, wow, like these drag kings like are killing it and they're so talented and at the same time have a voice when they had their message, especially with some of the performances that they had performed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, you know what, we need to have more diversity. I believe in such a big group and welcoming people into our tent of like craziness where everyone and anyone is welcome, but at the same time giving them a platform to kind of showcase their talent. Because yes, we love all the drag queens, but at the same time there are drag kings that want to be just as represented and have the same platform as a drag queen. So I feel like me having to see that, I would love to even bring them on board, even reach out to them to see if they would like to volunteer someday, because that's a start, you know, like I think we haven't had a very strong presence in our organization with drag kings, so I think that would bring such a dynamic to the organization, and I would just grow our platform as an organization and take that to the next level, as we keep saying, elevating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that we should be doing. I am like everyone that's watching, you know, I'm the biggest King fan. Like I am a King stan. My account is a King stan. In fact, I'm going to be doing a show at the executive suite, and I'm only booking kings. Like I'll probably be the only queen there, but I probably won't even dress up as queen. I'll just dress up like non-binary, like I am now. Maybe not the boobs.
I think that's what represents the X line, you know, being very comfortable in showcasing not just a one-sided thing, but showcasing both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's so well represented in our community, is being comfortable in your own skin, no matter what shape, size, boobless, no boobs. It's such a nice aspect to have, to feel comfortable in your own skin.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would love to see more of that, like in our organization, and expand that and change our trajectory of our history that we've built upon, and like make the years of 50, you know, a very big generational change for the drag kings, the queens, the non-binary, and even then, like even cis male and cis female. Like we've never had like allies that really want to be a part of our organization, where they want to do what we do but still be supportive.
Yeah, I absolutely think it's important for us to have straight allies, or just queer allies, because honestly, when we don't have a voice, they're the ones that have the privilege to step up and have the voice for us, to help us get there to where we can have a voice. And honestly, without them, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Exactly.
Not saying that they did all the work.
No, but they were part of the work,
right.
You know. And at the end of the day, we should always be inclusive of like every aspect of how our journey of our queer community is today. It doesn't mean like they were a big part of it, but they were a part of like the fact of having a voice at awards. You know, some of the actors and actresses will always speak up for what they believe in, and in most recent times, like the Oscars and so forth, they speak so highly to support us, and I love that, because it shows how far we can go, and not just a village, but even much more of like a city itself, you know. So that's why I'm like, oh yes, more power to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking
of cities, I currently live in the city of Lakewood, which is not a part of Long Beach. However, it is part of the Long Beach realm, like San Pedro, Artesia, Norwalk, and cities that pretty much surround Long Beach.
Correct.
My question would be, if elected Emperor, what would you like to do to help include those cities more?
I think something for me, and knowing as per conversation with many others, is that each city does have a pride, or they have a pride in their city. And I think one thing we can do is definitely show up and support the pride, because that just shows that we're integrating our city with others. And even with like some of the bars and like that have in their cities, such as like Flux is in Lakewood, there's the Crest, and in San Pedro they have like events at this they get the Bell, the Cream Bell, and they do have some festivals and stuff. And I think it's just one thing is showing up and showing out, and being supportive not just within our own city, but expanding ourselves into those cities where they have events for other queer people like us. Because the first step is being present. I think if you're not present, then then you're not seen to showing the support anywhere. And my biggest thing is being present. During my campaign, for sure, as I believe in being out, and the only way for your community to remember you or your people out there that's going to remember what you're doing is being visible, and not just having to have a social media presence, but actually having to talk to people one-on-one, or being in a place where people can physically see you, and having to have that one-on-one conversation. So I think something I would definitely do is go out to those events that they put on for our prides and more queer events in other cities that are surrounding in our realms, to be visible and be seen, and that just shows support.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are some charities that maybe you're like passionate about?
When I say charities, it's a little hard because there's so many I would love to tackle. Especially, I have a passion for healthcare, and there's like the Care Center program, which they help people that don't have a lot to live for them with like HIV, AIDS, and there's some other services that helps pay their rent and bills like that. So like having to get people off the streets, and especially with like youth programs like the Brave Trails, that we had one in a previous reign, which they help younger folks or younger kids kind of get them off the streets to feed them. It's kind of homelessness, like with kids that get kicked out of their house because they're not welcome being queer. So those are some of like the things. Even with like at the center, they do have a really good program when it comes to the Mighty program for their kids program. I'm really big on the youth because again, when it comes to the youth, that's who's going to take our spots we're sitting here now today. They're going to be the voices that the next generation needs while we paved the way for them.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I feel like with the youth, it's like very important to keep them well engaged and keep them well educated what we can do today, because they're our tomorrow, So that's like a very big thing for me. Another program that I sit on the board for, which is amazing, is the AIDS Food Store. And food insecurity has hit a lot for me because during the pandemic, it was like so sad to see a lot of people that had no food, especially with families with kids, and kids could barely eat. And now we come into an organization where it's food insecurity and people with HIV and AIDS that barely can survive because they have no energy to get out of their house, and the only thing they can do is pay for their bills to make sure that they can get free food and so forth. So it's being part of that organization has taught me even much more of like how to feel even deeper, because it's just so joyful to see them happy that they had a program for them, and to see the volunteers come up, and it's like, thank you so much for helping and doing all you do. It's like, such a rewarding feeling.
Right.
And I think that's the feeling we need to instill like every day to people as we do all these volunteer work, all these events. It's like what we're doing is good for the community, because if it's not for us to do it, who will? There's so many people that need to continuously remember, like, people need help. And it may not be the easiest ways of doing it, but I think anything and everything helps one another in any way possible, especially in our community that's always attacked.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of, going out and helping the community, something that comes to my mind is a question that pops up is, why do you think it's important for us as the Imperial Court, or maybe just as a community in general, to do something because it's the right thing to do, and not to do it because it's like, oh, look at me, look what I do. Like someone that goes out and
100%.
posts about something.
I think it goes down to what you believe in. I think at the end of the day, I believe in, it's just, my opinion, I believe in doing the good because, again, it's another person, another body that is looking out for one another. I think we have to remind ourselves that we don't, as there is conversations or people, like sometimes it's not always about the crown, it's about the work we do. And when you think about the passion and the love and the care for people, I think that's where our heart forgets that we wear the crown and we're at a title, and we can continuously doing the work for the betterment of others and not just for ourselves. We have to take ourselves sometimes out of it because it's not about us, it's about the people that do need the help and the support. Like, even if it's a simple beach cleanup, it's not about us, it's about the beach. You know, we have to take us out of it, and it's just our bodies doing the work that helps so many other people. And again, as I would want to say, it's not always about the title, it's about the work we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can have said better. What is the most memorable thing that you can just, like, at the top of your head when you went out into the community and helped the community? What's something that, like, you can remember right now that you're like, oh, I remember doing this and this is why I liked it?
Well, it takes me back to volunteering at the AIDS Food Store. So the AIDS Food Store, every fourth Saturday of the month, at the AIDS Food Store on Willow and Atlantic, behind the Yoshinoya, they serve hot foods to the community. So for those that are part of the program, can pick up their groceries, and then we serve hot foods that's either donated by the Long Beach Aquarium or the Convention Center.
Okay.
And so the food's always great, and there was a day when I think it was like a couple, and you know, they're unfortunate, but they have HIV and AIDS, and they're very much in a very hard situation. But having to serve them food and pack their food and have them just sit down and converse with them, they were just like starting to tear because they just see like the passion of like the volunteers, like trying to like make sure that they have a life. So I was like, you know, don't make me cry. It's like, I love this. This is why it makes me so happy to be a part of a community that appreciates volunteers to give up their time. And that day just reminded me why I love doing it. It's because the joy of like knowing that someone's happy because of someone else, and that it's not like they're forgotten just because they have what they have or they don't have what they have. It's like, we got you. And it's like, I will never forget that if you can put a smile on someone's really bad day, they will remember that smile more than you can remember even to be alive. Because that one smile can change your whole life. So it was just like, you just made me give me even more reason to keep doing what I'm doing. Because this is why I come here to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty recent too, and it's a continuous factor of like seeing the same faces. And it's one thing to do one community service event, but to continuously doing it just shows the factor of like your passion, that you are here for the right reasons, that you're just not here for a good cute little photo. You know, I think it's the continuous work that is the same, but yes, expand. But being present again is just the most amazing thing.
So something that is, you know, very prevalent in our community, and it's something that we face every single day, is AIDS and HIV. Why do you think it's so important for you to know your status?
Oh, 100%, because you don't want to affect anyone. You don't want to feel, and you want to be careful for yourself and have a well-established healthcare, and knowing that having to know your status allows you to take care of yourself. I think the first step is knowing your status. You know how to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. Because again, you don't want to put others in jeopardy because of your mistake or you're not knowing your status. I think it's so important. Funny thing to segue to some fun facts is, as I was scrolling to TikTok, I did find like the top 10 places where the population of HIV and AIDS is prevalent. And when you think back decades ago, and everyone knows where HIV and AIDS was very predominant in, which was New York. It is now not the most prevalent place that has HIV and AIDS, which it used to be the mecca of where it started, and it's actually like the top 9, which is crazy because that just shows how much more we've known our status, to understand the status and to take care of ourselves and our well-being and of others too, that we can battle this crazy pandemic of its own self and find a solution to finally get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very scary thing to think of not knowing if you have, you know, are positive or negative or whatever your status is, and to kind of, in a way, just be careless.
Yeah.
And go out and possibly give people scares.
Of course.
And I think that just 100% it's a part of being young, right? Like, you're young and reckless, right? But I think that the newer generation, I feel like my generation was very young and reckless.
And I can agree. I mean, we come from the same generation, and
Mhm.
yes, being wild and free runs through our blood.
But I think that something I've noticed is like a lot of the newer generations are more aware because they're listening.
Of course.
Through
Through our trials and tribulations.
Yes. Oh God. Were those older gays now? Back in my day.
Now that's us.
Yeah, 100%. Why do you think it's also important to not just give advice to the younger generations, but also like hear feedback from them?
I think feedback is what allows us to grow. I think we need to remember that the feedback that we get teaches us a lesson more than we've already known. If we don't get any feedback, then there's no growth. So like having the feedback even from the younger generation is always going to teach us a lesson, how to be better at what we do, because they've lived through us and we made those mistakes, or we made those trials and tribulations where they've observed, and when they're going through their experiences, it could be so different. And so hearing their feedback is so crucial to grow and bridge the two generations together, because that's what, as we segue back to the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
that's how we elevate ourselves from the traditions that already started and
Right.
taking it to that next level, is listening to the community that are young, that are generationally older, and yet bridge those, and that's the bridge, is hearing the feedback on both spectrums of the way.
So then my next question is pretty much the opposite, right? Just flipping it. Why is it so important for the younger generations and for our generations to listen to our elders?
Well, that goes to show with the experience. With our trials and tribulations, we have a lot to offer. I think people don't miss some of the points with listening to our elders because they have the wisdom. They're wise, and the wisdom and the choices that they made will definitely better to grow the younger folks or new folks into what not to do or what to do better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I've learned through my ways of being in the community was, oh yeah, I kind of don't want to do that. It's because I don't want to, I don't want to be reckless myself. So it's like listening to the folks that have been through the experiences that we've all been through and
Mm-hmm.
that they've been through, which is going to teach us a valuable lesson to give back to the younger generation when we listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this brings me to my next question. Growing up, when you were younger, or maybe like when you were, a little bit younger than you are now, how did you know like you were different, or like what were you like? You know what? Like I'm gay.
Well, funny thing that you segue into that, just because a few months ago I actually did a photo shoot, and it was a project. And it was a project to be my true authentic self, and that was his question. And it was a similar interview where it brought back some rekindling memories. I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened when I was 16. So I was actually dating girls then. I started off as a straight man at the time. But there was a moment where I just realized, I think it was around the age of 14, 15, where I was like, oh my gosh, like, boys are cute too. I'm a little confused. And so I did go through a bi phase.
Mm-hmm.
And during that bi phase, I was just like very fixated on just like the male creature itself. I still think women are hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think the essence of a woman is very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I found out when I was 16, that's when I realized, I was like, yeah, I think I'm pretty gay. I had my first boyfriend, and I was just like, wow, like have a connection with a similar sex was very different to like actually have a connection with like a cis woman. And so segue into that long story, ever since like I was 16 and in high school, I was like known as like, oh, look at this gay boy. I used to wear makeup. When I was in high school, I actually wore like makeup and form-fitting women's clothes to school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I used to have hair like down to my back.
Wow.
Yeah, I've come a long way, but yeah, I used to be very into like the androgyny, like women's clothes and makeup, and I still think it's fun. It's fun to dress up nowadays. Just now, like it's so accepted, You know, like then living in Hawaii, it was very different. It was very like sheltered in a way because it was either you were super feminine or you were just straight acting in the closet, and there was no in between. So growing up was a little hard.
Yeah.
Because I either had to pay, and that's at my point I was like a very feminine gay boy with long hair that wore makeup to school and women's clothes. And then now I'm like totally on the other side of the spectrum now. So yeah.
Why do you think that occurred? Like you switching with your like clothing?
I think for me, when I transplanted to California, I realized like having to dabble back into my boy side of my upbringing, like of being very masculine and seeing how the California boys are very different. And you go to Hawaii, it is very different. And maybe it's changed now. I haven't been home in such a long time, but having to come here and the male fashion was very like Echo and like like those kinds of baggy brands and hip hop stuff. And I was very much a hip hop head. I loved hip hop music. Coming into California wanting to dance hip hop, like I kind of fixated on like the culture of hip hop, so I started dabbling into dressing up much more boyish. And yeah, I kind of just love fashion. I think that's segued into so much of like my fashion choices, coming from like wearing women's clothes to mixing now I'm like in leather, and I love wearing skirts. I think boys in skirts are so cool. To see it much more represented is like such an iconic thing in the community, especially when straight men or like cis straight men actually embrace like being androgynous in their own way. And I'm like, people just need to stop judging and let's be our own personal self and be artsy and free.
Yeah, the whole fashion like industry is wild.
It's so wild.
I mean, like in the 1800s, they used to dress the baby boys up in pink. And then when they matured, which like age 13, then they would take do a portrait, not a picture. They would paint a portrait of them in red. And so it was like they were transitioning from the soft young boy into like the tough men, and red's such a masculine color. And it's so wild that like during like World War II, I think it was a little bit before that, when we were like, oh, pink is for girls and blue is for boys, because the fashion industry was like, this is what I have and this is what we're gonna sell. It's just so wild thinking that like how much fashion like controls our life.
Oh, 100%. And I think fashion is such an expressive way of really like showing who you are. Like people love to mix and match, and like especially how different cultures and different like cities and different states and like countries have such a different insight of like what fashion is to them.
Right.
And having to mix all of those together is just such a fun thing, because I come from a very heavy fashion background. Like I was a merchandiser. I worked in Forever 21 in fast fashion, so I just love and breathe fashion each and every day. So it's just fun to see how it evolves and becomes so much more expressive for like not just anyone, like everyone.
Yeah, and it's also wild thinking. You were talking about Forever 21. I immediately thought of like my high school days, where like people had like the scene kid haircut, like with the bangs right here, and then like the spiky hair, and then they had like a Forever 21 shirt, and they're like,
Oh, those days.
And we always took recreated the angle. You're welcome, younger generations. We were like, wait, if we put the camera up here, you won't see my double chin.
Yeah, those were the days.
Where do you see yourself, maybe like 10 years from now, right?
Yeah.
In the future?
I honestly still see myself 10 years from now as giving back to the community. I feel very passionate about something that is not just temporary. I think if you're going to be a part of something that is a legacy, why stop? I do see myself in a sense where it's, trying to be a mentor to the younger generation. I believe in like mentorship in ways where it's like constantly ebb and flowing with everyone and anyone that wants to be educated. I want to definitely be that. I think I long for like the essence of like mentorship, just because I love to teach people, and being a hip hop dance teacher to 5 to 7 year olds, for like kids that dream to be a professional dancer when they grow up, it's just like always stuck with me. And that's why I feel like giving back is like, you know, you're a teacher to the community. You're that leader that the kids, the adults, that they don't usually get, because it's not just for kids too. Like adults still want to be a part of it. They just need to be educated. And yeah, I see myself in 10 years continuously giving back to the community. And I mean, one day I would love to have my own business again. I did have my own like fashion store online, but pandemic, you know, it was a little hard. But no, I would love to bring that back. I kind of want to make fashion with a purpose again.
Oh, I love that, fashion with a purpose.
I feel like right now in this day and age, like meaningful things make much more of a presence, because I don't want to dress just to dress sometimes. Sometimes I want to wear something that has meaning to it, like a shirt that says like more power to you, you know, or something like that. I think the fashion can be expressive in a very simplistic way that's also affordable for people that want to make a statement. And to bring that back again would be so much fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So before we leave,
Yeah.
I would like to give you an opportunity to maybe like tell us something about yourself, or maybe something exciting, or maybe something boring, whatever you want. It could be anything, and yeah, whatever you wanted to say.
Wow. To have free reign to say anything. Not anything. But no. Honestly, I think this is a very interesting time in my life. I think there has been so many changes and attributes of different challenges that I have learned about myself. And honestly, the one thing I would truly say is like, love who you want. Love is love, and not for just one. If it's many, wonderful. As long as you keep everyone and anyone happy that you're a part of. And yeah, I just like something very interesting about myself is just to love, to not always think that there's always just one love. There's many. You know, believe in others as they believe in you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
Before we leave, though, I mean, knowing that we are here for interviewing for a candidacy, something I do want to announce to make sure that people do remember is, if you do live in Long Beach or the 16 surrounding cities, which we can list in the comments of some sort, don't forget to vote February 17th at Hamburger Mary's on the patio from 10 to 2 and 4 to 8. And if you plan to come to coronation, or you couldn't make it to vote on the 17th, you can vote on the 2nd at Hospitality, and it should be from 10 to 2.
Yes, and that's at the Long Beach.
Good question. At Holiday Inn on Lakewood and Willow.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. This cute little one.
Thank you so much for being the first person to be on this kind of like question talk show that I'm creating.
No, I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah, it was fun getting to know you a little bit better. And for you having the opportunity to just kind of like let the community know who you are.
Yeah.
And I hope to do this again with you, maybe.
Oh yeah, of course. Hopefully if we do this again, it's for many other reasons.
Yes. And thank you for those of you watching on YouTube. I'll go ahead and put Rod's Instagram in the little description area below, as well as mine. Subscribe and follow, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.